Hey everyone, I am Shannon Watts. I'm the founder of Moms Demand Action. I am thrilled to be joined by some incredible Michiganders tonight for a conversation about how they're turning tragedy into action following the horrific mass shooting at Michigan State University that killed 3 students, wounded 5 more, and just left an entire community traumatized. Ranjeev Puri is a former Moms Demand Action volunteer and is currently in the Michigan House of Representatives, where he serves as the House Majority Whip and represents Canton Township. I'm also very excited to have Addison Collatz join us tonight. She is a volunteer with the Michigan State University chapter of Students Demand Action. And Addison, I think you go by either Addie or Addison, is that correct?
Yeah, Addie's a nickname, so Addison's perfectly fine.
And I also want to make sure I have your pronouns correct.
Yep, she, her, yes.
Okay, great. So it's wonderful to have you both here. And I just want to start with you, Addie. I know there's just an outpouring of support on campus and in the community. So how are you doing and what has this meant to you and your classmates?
Yeah, Shannon, honestly, I feel like my classmates and I are doing the best we can, you know. It's a lot to process. I think we've had like a lot of great resources, especially, given through MSU. We have MSU CAPS, our counseling and psychiatric center, and it's been great. They've been making themselves available all week and mobile to students to process a lot of the feelings and grief. Um, a lot of local businesses in Lansing and countless volunteers in the East Lansing community have dropped everything and just have supported Spartans in a numerous amount of ways. I know I'm a big basketball fan, so looking up to Coach Izzo and having him speak is, he's a role model and a leader, and it's really great to see him stepping up and connecting with us and talking to us. I think the best thing around me that I am so grateful for is my professors, my faculty, and especially my classmates. I can't thank them enough. They've done an extraordinary amount of stepping up for us and in our community, and they've shown amazing levels of empathy for me and everyone else. So,
It's really wonderful to hear, and I'm just so sorry you all are experiencing this, and thank you for being here and sharing that. Rep Puri, you have had a really strong statement following the shooting. You said thoughts and prayers without action and change are meaningless. And I think you used some other strong words too, which I appreciate. So thank you for saying that so forcefully. Even more importantly, thank you then for helping actually lead that action and change. Can you talk a little bit about how the gun safety packages, your colleagues in the state, basically what they've introduced and how they would impact gun violence?
Yeah. Thank you. And I just want to start out by thanking both of you to allowing me to join this forum today. I'm not a Spartan by trade, but we're in Michigan. We're all Spartan strong until we can have some meaningful change here. And Shannon, I know we've talked a number of times, but I have a great admiration for everything that you've done to progress this national conversation. So just thank you for your organization's work on this. But if I take you back to last week and the night of the shooting, I was like every other Michigander. I was on the edge of the seat of my couch, kind of glued to my phone, updating Twitter and Instagram and watching local media outlets update by the minute, and watching just harrowing video come out of Michigan State University. And amongst the pandemonium, we were getting conflicting reports. There was at first just the numbers of potential victims was much higher. For those not familiar with Michigan State campus, it's huge. We were getting reports of shootings all over the place, of thinking that there's multiple shooters. We were texting and calling with East Lansing's proximity to the state capitol. All of us in Lansing are invested deeply in the East Lansing community. And so, and all of that, amongst that, I went through the motions of frustration and sadness and anxiety and deja vu of thinking that we were just 15 months removed of doing this similarly in the Oxford High School shooting. And so, just through that and watching this play out for hours just left me at a point of frustration where I didn't want to kind of use the pre-penned statement we have for mass shootings, sadly, and was just left with a raw level of emotion. And so, just having that empathy just led me to kind of say what I did, and and I meant every word of it. And we do need to lead with action, as you mentioned, Shannon. And so, the people of Michigan spoke last November, bringing in common sense candidates, leading to common sense majorities in the House, Senate, and governor's office. And so, for the first time in 40 years, Michigan has a Democratic trifecta in every chamber. And I look forward to working with just the great leadership we have in place to get common sense gun reform through. And so last week, the Senate introduced 11 common sense gun reform bills. And in the House, we were actually supposed to be celebrating those victories tonight of introducing those, but we have an infamous Michigan snow day today. And so we will get those introduced the first chance we get. And so we will be introducing extreme risk protection orders, safe storage laws, and universal background checks. And so as many viewers know, those are ideas and policies that have been introduced in dozens of states around the country, have held up to litigation efforts, and have wide bipartisan support. And so I'm confident that this new leadership in Michigan will deliver for the people of Michigan in turning this tide and making Michigan a safer place.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you for doing exactly what you were elected to do. That is wonderful to see. Addie, I'm really amazed by the amount of students that we're seeing all across the state mobilizing really every single day since the shooting. They've staged sit-ins and had protests and held vigils and calling over and over again for action on gun safety. What do you think young people want to see from their lawmakers?
Yeah, Shannon. I mean, I think at this point, young people don't want thoughts and prayers anymore. We don't want empty promises. We don't want everyone to forget about the 3 students who were taken, and the 5 students who are still recovering at Sparrow Hospital. We want real action, and we want change through legislation. After the shooting at Oxford High School, lawmakers refused to even hold a basic gun safety proposals. And this time it has to be different. Students around the state and even other states have been showing up every single day on various campuses and at the state capitol to demand action, because we know we can't keep living like this. We want common sense policies put in place to make sure a tragedy like this doesn't happen again in any place else. Thanks to voters, we have a real opportunity to pass these foundational gun laws, background checks, extreme risk laws, and secure firearm storage. And now we're counting on lawmakers to get these bills across the finish line to Governor Whitmer. Voters have done our part, and now it's time for lawmakers to do theirs.
Yes, that is very true. Thank you for that, Addie. Representative, it's horrible, but it's also deeply emblematic of our nation's gun violence epidemic that there are students from Michigan State University who actually were also survivors of the Oxford High School shooting. And that was just a year and a half ago. So there's all these strong calls for action, as you said, on new gun safety laws like secure storage. And that started happening after the Oxford High School shooting. But back then, there was a Republican-controlled legislature, and they did nothing. We now finally have a gun sense majority in the legislature, and as you mentioned, you are poised to take life-saving action. So what role do you see gun safety and the lack of action that followed the Oxford horrific mass shooting, the fact that nothing happened, do you think that played a role in this election cycle?
I do. Right now, we're having some very powerful statewide conversations on the role of common sense gun reform. And, I was in my freshman term last term, and so maybe I was naive, but I thought the Oxford shooting would have spurred that same conversation. And so it was debilitating for me to come in with such just excitement on being able to shift this conversation and watch those horrific events play out in Oxford, and then nothing happened. Individually, I worked with members on the other side to try to make these efforts bipartisan, which is what you have to do when you're in the minority, as we were
Mm-hmm.
last term. And I had some conversations, but you could quickly kind of decipher that there was a lot of misinformation, and whether intentional or not, kind of coming out from the other side. And I think serving that term in the minority, having a front row seat and kind of watching the Oxford shooting play out, and then just really the inaction afterwards really kind of set a tone for me in understanding how we need to organize this term, whether we were going to be in the majority or minority. And I think it also, is worth noting that, we've alluded to the statement I made, and, albeit whatever was said, most people were offended by the first 5 words. And so why I want to kind of bring that up and be very intentional about talking about that is because in Michigan here, I have been the scapegoat for many on the other side, where many sitting legislators have issued direct statements in response to what I said. There's been op-eds in response to what I said. At the end of the day, my opinion on this shouldn't matter that much, as I'm just one person. But what I particularly want to point out is that all it took was 5 words for the other side to lose focus on what really matters. And that's the horrific incidents of Michigan State University.
Yep.
And as Addie mentioned, the 3 lives lost, and the 5 that were severely wounded. And that's where the focus needs to be. But, it's these intentional misinformation campaigns and spin that gets put out where we lose focus. And so these issues don't need to be partisan or political, but for some reason, the focus is quickly lost anytime the conversations come up for delivering on common sense gun reform. And so, these are efforts that I'm willing to work with anyone who wants to help make Michigan safer. It doesn't, your party affiliation shouldn't matter here, because at the end of the day, if we're not taking care of our children, if society doesn't feel safe going out to public venues, then we're not doing our job as state legislators. And so that is a non-negotiable for me, and something that I think that for many Michiganders, to your point, Shannon, that they're paying attention to, and they're remembering those things when they do go vote come election time.
Well, I mean, regardless of political party, let's hope people are more upset by dead children than words. Addie, how did you get involved in Students Demand Action? I know that you are galvanizing around this tragedy and helping to make sure that this pain turns into purpose and action. But what spurred you to get involved with Students Demand Action, and what would you say to other students who are looking to get involved?
Yeah, so I got involved with Students Demand Action in 2017 after a teacher in my hometown, Laura Wallen, was killed in a domestic violence act involving a gun. Miss Wallen personified empathy and making a positive change in and outside of the classroom. She is one of the reasons I am here today and why I'm so passionate about ending gun violence in America. I want to preserve her legacy by doing what she did and standing up for students and evoking change for a better and safer world. To anyone looking to get involved, there's a place for you in this movement. There's so many ways to be an advocate, and we have tons and tons of resources to find out what you're most, passionate about regarding this movement. If you want to learn more, please text students to 64433. Ending gun violence will take all of us. If you're ready, please come join us.
Well, Addie, thank you so much for sharing that. Representative, I know you have a deep connection to Moms Demand Action and generally the gun violence prevention advocacy world and movement. And I know that your wife has as well. So can you talk a little bit about how you and your wife's work as volunteers for Moms Demand Action have influenced your work on this issue now as a lawmaker?
Yeah, absolutely. As I kind of mentioned in our prelude here, I have a tremendous admiration for the Moms Demand organization, and that was even prior to me joining and becoming a mom. Just the phenomenal work that the organization has done around the country. But for me, a lot of what sparked my interest in running for office was, unfortunately, my family's previous place of worship fell victim to a white supremacist mass shooter in 2012. And so this provided an avenue for me and my wife to kind of meet like-minded people and really just kind of helped bring our thoughts and energy to a place that was actually we could deliver some action. And so, and broader than just my wife and my kids, it became a close-knit family politically that I could count on and having that base. And as I made the kind of transition to join the legislature, I think one thing that helps new and incoming legislators is having that perspective or lived experience. And so for me, I felt that, this gave me a sense of purpose of why I was in Lansing, and understanding what, one of my key priorities was from ever since my first day. And so I've been working tirelessly to have this conversation. It's unfortunate that it takes horrific events and for these conversations to be reactionary when we know that there's just common sense reform available to be more proactive and prevent these type of things from happening. But bringing that perspective to Lansing has allowed me to connect with, many other legislators who unfortunately are survivors or no survivors themselves. And so, and form a very strong coalition, especially with this new class. We have 28 freshmen here in the Michigan House, and many of them are very strong on this issue. And I'm very proud to work with my colleagues, and I'm sure that we are all committed to delivering for the people of Michigan and for Moms Demand Action.
Well, I'm thrilled that you get to work this year with a gun sense trifecta. Thank you both so much for all you're doing to help save lives from gun violence. Your work and your passion just gives me personally so much hope, and hope to people who are watching that you will get this done. But we need every single voice to get off the sidelines. We need you to use your voices and your votes. We need you to join us in this fight. So if you're watching and you want to get involved, and you don't have to be a mom, we're mothers and others, students and survivors, text the word READY to 64433. Again, text the word READY to 64433 and get connected to your local Moms Demand Action or Students Demand Action chapter. Someone will get right back to you and tell you how to plug in where you live. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you tuning in tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.